Russians are voting in local elections. These polls will be scrutinized for signs of discontent. In this regional election, 18 governors will be elected. The local elections come weeks after Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny was allegedly poisoned. He questioned United Russia's grip on regional power. Before he fell seriously ill, Navalny had urged his supporters to vote against the political party tactically. United Russia is the ruling political party which also dominates regional politics. However, it is difficult to say if the party will retain its power on ground, as this election comes at a time when public frustration is running high due to falling wages and government's handling of the pandemic. Regional election is being perceived as a dry run for parliamentary election scheduled for 2021. Navalny's allies have been pressing for what they call a smart voting strategy. They have been urging voters to name more than 1,000 politicians on the ballots that they think can beat the ruling party candidates. The strategy aims to disrupt a political system that bars Kremlin's staunch critics from running. Meanwhile, several thousand people gathered in Khabarovsk for a weekly protest against Kremlin. People have been holding rallies since a popular governor was detained on murder charges that he denies. Sergei Frugal's supporters say that his detention was politically motivated. They also accuse Russian president of mishandling the local political crisis. Protesters demand now a fair election. Fred Weir, Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Moscow. Mr. Weir, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to WION. Russians headed to the polls to elect new regional and city leadership, and the United Russia Party has in fact dominated regional politics in the past. These elections are clearly going to be a test for the United Russia. What can we expect from this three-day vote? Do you think they will be able to retain power this time?
Well, in some places, yes. In a few places, it really is in question. United Russia is like a big trade union of officials and big business. It has a stranglehold not only on political power, but also economic power. It is a real major force. And it is the pro-Kremlin party. So symbolically, you can say this is sort of a test for Putin. But really, the leader of the party is Dmitry Medvedev, the former prime minister. And in various regions, it will use all of its administrative resources, all of its advantages to hold on to power, and in most places it probably will. But there are some trouble spots for it, places like Irkutsk and Arkhangelsk, where there has been a buildup of local resentment against the party. Not so much against Putin, but against the party. There are regional issues. Yeah.
Also, this is the second time that Russians are going to polls in the midst of a still raging coronavirus crisis. How do you think these lingering issues are going to affect the polls?
Well, it's hard to say. Some of those places are under lockdown still, and yet they've decided to go ahead with the elections. They spaced it out over 3 days. So today will be the last day of voting. But still, yes, the virus is still raging in Russia, as it is in many places in the world. And I guess people here in Russia, I can see that people have decided to just ignore it. They're sick and tired of lockdowns. It has put everybody in a bad mood, and it may well affect the voting, which we'll know by tomorrow.
Yes, of course. And also, the timing is so important this time because these local elections come after weeks of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny's alleged poisoning. And Navalny has also touted his smart voting tactic. How do you assess that?
Well, you see, Russia doesn't have a first-past-the-post system. It's 2 rounds. If no one gets 50% in the first round, they have to go to a second round with 2 candidates facing off. And that really benefits the opposition, because United Russia can count on about 30% support, almost a third of the electorate, almost everywhere. And if it was a first-past-the-post system, they would win, but it's not. So Navalny has been for some time advocating a system where people should vote for the strongest alternative candidate. Could be a communist, could be a member of Vladimir Zhirinovsky's Nationalist Party, or Fair Russia, which is sort of social democratic party. They're all called systemic opposition in Russia because they all are allowed to run in elections. In some places, supporters of Navalny are running. In Novosibirsk for city council, actual supporters of Navalny are in the running, and it will be awfully interesting to see how much backing they get. But Navalny's idea was, don't spread out the opposition vote. Focus it on one person who is most likely to defeat United Russia. And it did work extremely well in Moscow, local elections last year. A lot of United Russia people got unseated by communists and other people that Navalny doesn't like, but he's doing it to put pressure on the Kremlin, and his idea is to destroy United Russia if he can.
All right. And lastly, Mr. Weir, what do you think the continuing government rallies in Khabarovsk and in Russia's ex-Soviet neighbor Belarus could mean for the Kremlin at the ballot box?
I don't think they play that strongly in other regions of Russia. I don't notice huge interest in Belarus among Russians. I think it's us foreign journalists who round up all the reasons people must be disaffected against Putin and all the reasons Russia is doomed. A lot of journalists are doing that. Those rallies in Khabarovsk are very local. They're about a particular issue that isn't of much interest beyond Khabarovsk region.
All right. Mr. Weir, thank you so much for joining us with all those inputs. We will definitely keep tracking this as and when this develops. Now, moving on, peace talks between the Taliban and Afghan government get down to business on day 2 of